social media is their reality.
Yeah, if I'm feeling down, then I'll look on those things and they'll just make it worse.
They have designed their algorithms and their networks exactly to cater to human pathology in its most extreme forms.
I originally set out to make a documentary that explored the possible positive benefits of diminished or controlled social media use. What I actually uncovered was something far, far darker.
Now, here's a story, and it's very, very significant because it's part of a much bigger story, a much bigger plan. Traditional masculinity deemed harmful could lead to sexual harassment, medical group says. Now, this medical group, now I've talked about clueless politicians. Now I'm going to talk about clueless psychologists. That wouldn't include every single one of them, but it includes most of them. Because first of all, they're dealing with psychology overwhelmingly from the point of view of the physical body, and the physical body doesn't exist as a physical entity. And it's seeing everything at that level. So immediately your conclusions are going to be skewed. But this is a classic. For the first time in its history, the American Psychological Association, the APA, released guidelines concerning men and boys saying that so-called traditional masculinity not only is harmful but could also lead to homophobia and sexual harassment. I wonder if traditional psychology could lead to insanity. I think it could. Over the years, you know, I've met a few people that work in psychology, and most of them needed a psychologist. Because here we have, yet again, an alleged medical report that is absolutely politicized, just as the reports coming out of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change are completely politicized. It's not about what is, it's about what the agenda wants people to believe is. And this attack on men and masculinity is part of this vast gender agenda to transform the human race. I've gone into it in the books at length, but basically they want to create, in the end, a human being that is basically neither male or female. And it's to do with creating a very different kind of human body through manipulation, not least of technology. They want a synthetic human body. Now, this is not meant to happen tomorrow, but not as far in the future as people might imagine. And so all this stuff with these synthetic robots, etc., and the creation of synthetic DNA and synthetic this and synthetic that, which is part of the biological body, they're all connected to this agenda of creating this synthetic human, and the synthetic human would not be able to procreate. This is where you go into Aldous Huxley's not 1984, George Orwell, but Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, where he described this very reality, where humans no longer procreated, and children were, as he called them, decanted in laboratories on a mass scale. And so this whole transgender situation, which has come out of nowhere and has been claimed to be only about protecting transgender people from discrimination, well, no, it's not. That's just the excuse. The real reason is to completely confuse people, particularly the young, because they'll be the adults when they want to start bringing this in. To completely confuse them about their sense of gender. And it's working. I mean, the number of young people now questioning their gender and seeking to change their gender or live as another gender in the opposite to the body they have is absolutely fantastic. And it's happened by psychological manipulation. Now, if you're going to create this no gender human in the end, then you need to delete gender as it exists now, and as it's perceived now, and as it's lived now. And this is why there is this absolute war on masculinity, because they are moving towards fusing the genders. So they're pushing women into male areas, and they are suppressing, not least through efforts like this report, a sense of maleness, and thus getting the male to suppress that maleness, and eventually there's a fusion between the two and you get what you set out for. And there's a quote in this report by these ludicrous people, actually these disingenuous people, because don't tell me every single one of them believes this crap. Anyway, oh, but it's good for their career. So was following Hitler, mate. Look how that turned out. The main thrust, this is a quote from this American Psychological Association report. The main thrust of the subsequent research is that traditional masculinity, marked by stoicism, competitiveness, dominance and aggression, is on the whole harmful. Well, of course, what they call masculinity can get out of control and become aggressive and violent. But what about all the women that beat their husbands up? And I tell you what, that is no, these are not isolated cases. What about them? Should they be suppressed? But let's look at these words again, because it's all language and psychological manipulation. Marked by stoicism, competitiveness, dominance, and aggression. Now you can see those in, not least stoicism, in totally different ways. The masculinity that says to the system and says to any expression of injustice, we're not having it. No, enough. We're not standing for it. That's also masculine in its response. Now that's what they don't want. They don't want people standing up and saying enough, we're not having it. So they're targeting a sense of masculinity. Now, of course, they are faced with large numbers of adult men now who will resist that. A lot of them are falling for it, but will resist that. But what they're really doing is targeting the young who are coming through to be tomorrow's adults, to delete from them that masculine response to injustice, to unfairness, to government imposition. So all these things are connected, and it's when you connect the dots that you see the picture. And this, I was shaking my head when I was reading it because it's so blatant. Here's another quote. Traditional masculinity ideologies, it's an ideology now, it's not just the way you are, has been shown to limit male psychological development, constrain their behavior, result in gender role strain, and gender role conflict and negatively influence mental health and physical health. I mean, what is this crap? Gender role strain? Bloody hell. I read a book this week, by the way. Well, I read all the time. But I read a book this week which was the most boring book I've ever read. I won't go into it. It's too depressing. But the point was, it never used one syllable when 2,500 would do. You know what I mean? It was all these long words, some of which you had to have a look in the dictionary to see what he was talking about. And they posture their sense of intellectual superiority. Oh, I'm looking at this long word. You know, I'm using this long word. Oh, really? So you're not trying to communicate with people then? You're just trying to show how bloody clever you are, and you're actually very clever because you're not communicating with people, because people are going, oh, I don't understand this. Put the book down. What's the point of writing it? And you get this with these people in this ludicrous system of not just gender, but many other areas. And they come out with these phrases. And, you know, a lot of the time, they don't even understand what they mean. When I was a journalist, and somebody, I was talking to someone who was alleged to be an expert, be an academic, whatever, and they'd sometimes do this to you. They'd throw all these words at you. And I used to say to them, oh, hold on, mate, look, just imagine, you know, I'm just a thicko, and you're trying to talk to me. Can you just use words that I would understand? And can you therefore explain what you've just described in endless jargon? Can you explain to me again, in words of one syllable, like, what does that mean? And you know what? They couldn't. They couldn't, because they didn't understand it. They were just repeating other people's jargon with their nose in the air, cracking on they understood what they were bloody talking about. It's everywhere, this stuff. What's that great line in Notting Hill, the movie Notting Hill, when she's asking Julia Roberts is asking the bloke where his house is, and he's trying to tell her, and she says, give it me in yards. Yeah. Less of the flannel, give it me in yards. But these people can't, because they don't understand. They're just repeaters.